You know, we are having a magical day, but they are not in Cincinnati, where by now you've probably heard All-Pro defensive end Trey Hendrickson will not play for the Bengals this year if he doesn't have a new contract. Hendrickson made this declaration at last week's OTAs, which has gotten a bit testy between he and the front office. New on SportsCenter, Joe Burrow, the team's franchise player, weighed in.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with that. You know, you guys all know how I feel about Trey. He's a great player. I love Trey as a guy. He goes out and plays well every single Sunday. He's very productive. He's a guy that deserves to get paid and get paid what he wants and what the market is. So, you know, like I said, we'll see what happens with that. But, you know, I love Trey and hope he's with us.
Jeff Darlington only wishes he had the mane of one Joe Burrow. That hair was fantastic. So is Jeff Darlington. Hey, since the draft, Hendrickson said there's been no communication between his camp and the Bengals. What are you hearing about these negotiations in Cincy?
Well, this has certainly been complicated, and as Trey Hendrickson said, it now feels personal to him. Now, the Bengals, for their part, do not feel like they've done anything to necessarily instigate that, but head coach Zach Taylor has recently said that he feels like he has needed to think long and hard about how he communicates with Hendrickson so that he does not take it personal. This has been complicated really all offseason, with Hendrickson originally asking for a trade and then feeling like there was progress being made. And now we're back to this point where, listen, it could change at any minute if the Bengals come up with their offer. But as of right now, it's not just the money, it's the structure. So yes, it does feel far off for a player, by the way, who has had 17.5 sacks each of the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, and on the offensive side of the ball, we know those stars got paid in Cincinnati, but as we also know, you need a defense to stop teams from scoring, and that's been the problem in Cincinnati the past couple of years. Let's switch gears now. A few weeks ago, it seemed both Micah Parsons and the Cowboys ironed out most of the issues surrounding a new deal. Schottenheimer, the new head coach, spoke today, said he has no issues with how Parsons has approached his offseason. So what's holding things up in Dallas with Micah Parsons?
Honestly, there feels like there are some parallels between this and Hendrickson from the standpoint that, like, every time you feel like there's frustration, it's followed what feels like this kumbaya moment where things could perhaps get done, and yet here we are still lingering into the offseason. So once again, we're really at this point where we just need these two sides to get together and knock out a deal. Enough talk. Both sides have said they want to get a deal done. The Cowboys at times obviously have said some somewhat, we'll call it amusing things when Jerry Jones has said he doesn't need to work through an agent, he can just work through Micah Parsons, to which Parsons has said that's not true at all. Again, a lot of talk, not so much action. At some point, we know these deals with the Cowboys usually get done.
Yep.
It's just a matter of, honestly, quite frankly, when.
We still have till the end of July till training camp starts. It's a long offseason. I wish we had more time so I could ask you a Johnny Vegas question, but that was last week.
To the NFL we go. The Pittsburgh Steelers do have some quarterbacks in their QB room, but they are also still waiting to hear from Aaron Rodgers about whether or not he'll be joining them or, you know, possibly hanging up his cleats, as we now welcome in our Steelers reporter, Brooke Pryor, for more on the Rodgers waiting game. It has been exactly 60 days since he visited Pittsburgh. What can you tell us about Rodgers' communication with the team as he still mulls over his decision?
Christine, are you sure it's been 60 days and not 60 years? Because it feels like this has been going on forever. But I can tell you I've talked with several Steelers sources this morning, and they said it's the status quo. They continue to remain in communication with Aaron Rodgers, and they're still optimistic that they ultimately end up landing him. The translation to that is that while they are being tight-lipped, they still believe that Aaron Rodgers will eventually be a Pittsburgh Steeler. But as has been the case the entire time, there is no firm deadline on when he could report and sign with the Steelers. And the Steelers are comfortable with that because they believe that he is a plug-and-play player where it doesn't matter when he shows up, you put him in the lineup and he's going to be good to go. And by the way, while the Steelers have been waiting, Aaron Rodgers has been living it up. He was doing events on Kentucky Derby weekend, and he was just at a friend's concert in Austin shooting a water gun into the crowd. So he's living the good life. He's not worried about calling the Steelers right now.
Okay, plug-and-play quarterback, but I feel like he does need to stretch it a little bit. He is kind of getting up there. You're at owners' meetings in Minnesota, and one of the topics being discussed is playoff reseeding. What has been the Steelers' reaction to the potential reformat?
Well, as Jeremy Fowler noted earlier, there are many teams that are not in favor of that, and I would count the Pittsburgh Steelers among them because Mike Tomlin said at owners' meetings back in Palm Beach in April that he is a division purist. He thinks that teams that win their division should be rewarded with a home playoff game. He said that he likes the structure of this schedule. He likes the division rivalries, and that would devalue the division rivalries if you were to reseed and the division winner didn't matter as much. And by the way, the Steelers are not often one of those teams that are playing in unimportant or games that don't matter late in the season. It's come down to the wire, it feels like, every year since I've been in Pittsburgh in 2019 and even before that. So count the Steelers among the teams that are not in favor of a playoff reseeding because they're purists. No surprise there.
All right, so certainly a lot to figure out there in Minnesota. Brooke, appreciate the insight. Thank you.
Philadelphia Eagles, the NFL owners meeting start up today in Minneapolis. On the docket is the Bush push and the Packers proposal that would more widely ban pushing or pulling the ball carrier on the field. It's been done for years, but Philly and Jalen Hurts have perfected the move. Jalen Hurts was speaking at an Eagles offseason workout. He declined to comment on the tush push. Luckily for us, senior NFL writer Jeremy Fowler is not allowed to decline on comments because that's what he gets paid to do. So for the second time in 2 months, the future of the tush push is in doubt right where you are there at the owners' meetings. What are you hearing about its fate there in Minnesota?
Matt, the tush push is officially on the ropes. NFL owners are expected to meet about this on Wednesday morning, so they're going to vote on whether to eliminate the ability to push or pull any ball carrier at any time. So this would essentially go back to the way the NFL was in the early 2000s. And the expectation is this could be pretty close. League owners only gave 16 votes back in March during those meetings. They need 24 votes to get a full majority. And so the Packers have at least tweaked their proposal to make it more broad. They didn't want to target one team, the Philadelphia Eagles. We will see if that's quite enough, but it's going to be close.
It's really amazing because teams can't stop what's essentially a quarterback sneak. They're going to take it out of the game. Different show, different argument, different time for that talk. Also talk of potential playoff reseeding after the Lions' March proposal that would largely use regular season records as the guiding principle rather than division titles. Where does that one stand?
Well, Matt, the people I've talked to are a little skeptical. They're not overly optimistic that that ruling will get passed. There are just too many teams that still value divisional crowns and being rewarded for that. But the people I've talked to also expect that a change is coming, if not now, then eventually, especially in light of an inevitable 18-game season. At least that's what it feels like, that will come to a point in the future. And the league wants to eliminate any sort of meaningless games late December, early January, where teams are locked into a seat. They want that more open-ended.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But the teams I've talked to don't expect a lot of movement, at least this week, unless something changes or there's a lot of convincing behind closed doors.
Yeah, maybe like the college football model we're talking about. If you win a conference, you're in the playoff, but you're going to get seeded based on your ranking and record. I mean, I think we'd all agree that's probably a little bit better of a way to do it. And finally, the owners are also supposed to vote on whether to allow NFL players to participate in the flag football during the 2028 Olympics. What's more there?
Yeah, Matt, the owners are meeting here at 3 p.m. Central Time in Minneapolis to go over that very topic. It is expected that they're going to vote for NFL players to be eligible for flag football in the 2028 Olympics. Flag football is a huge initiative for the NFL. They want this. A lot of the players are open to it and excited about it. So really, that's not the issue, is voting it through. The issue is the ground rules that they're going to have to set. The NFL Management Council is going to have to get with the players' union to hash out how they handle potential injuries, how they handle logistics of like salary cap credits if somebody does get hurt, how many players per team can be in there. So all of that will be hashed out in the coming months.
I have a question. Who from France or Trinidad and Tobago is going to line up and play flag football against NFL players in the United States? Like, who are they fielding?
Yeah, I would have to look at the databases in the NFL to see how many of those guys are actually in the league. Maybe there's somebody. It's going to be a tough slog there for sure.
Yeah, good luck. Fowler, good stuff. Thank you.
Đây mình sẽ hướng dẫn các bạn cách làm một sợi dây treo trang trí đơn giản từ len nhé. Nguyên liệu đây nha, mình sẽ sử dụng 3 màu sắc len như thế này này. Hồng, xanh, cam kết hợp lại nhé. Dùng kim móc len này là kéo nữa này. Và bây giờ sẽ bắt tay vào là mình sẽ sử dụng cái phần len màu cam trước nhá. Dùng phần len cam trước. Bây giờ mình sẽ móc vào đây một cái hình tròn nha mọi người. Mình sẽ tiến hành móc vào. Đây, móc vào đây. Cứ từng mũi một để tạo hình tròn nhé. Sử dụng là những mũi nửa kép. Mũi tiếp. Mũi tiếp theo nữa này. Đấy, cứ móc luân phiên cho mình nhé. Tiếp nha. Tiếp tục nha mọi người. Mọi người cứ móc luân phiên cho đến hết cho mình. Mũi tiếp theo này. Mình tiếp tục mình móc xuống. Đấy, móc xuống đây. Cứ luân phiên từng mũi. Tiếp nha. Mũi nữa cũng y như vậy này. Mọi người làm lần lượt cho mình. Mũi tiếp theo mình cũng làm như vậy nhé. Đấy, móc lần lượt như này. Ở đây còn 2 mũi nữa là sẽ kết thúc được cái hàng này nhá. Tiếp tục. Đây mình móc tiếp vào. Rồi mũi tiếp theo. Đấy, mình làm lần lượt như thế này. Móc nối vào đây và siết dây nhé. Ok nha, được cái hình tròn màu cam rất là dễ thương như thế này. Giờ sẽ đổi màu len đi. Đổi sang màu hồng nhé mọi người. Bây giờ sẽ gỡ len ra để dùng. Bây giờ sẽ móc cái màu hồng này vào. Đây, móc vào. Siết chặt phần len cam. Giờ sẽ móc xuống đây.